Good morning, friends. Hello, hello. Good morning on this beautiful rainy day. It is. Hope you are doing well, keeping dry. There's goodness in your day here. Good morning, everyone. Hey, Karen, good morning to you. Hope you're doing all right. Jamie Battles, everybody. Oh, let me just grab my coffee. Hello, friends. Hello, hello. How are you today? Hope you're staying dry. Hey, Linda, good morning to you. Good morning, everybody. Going 1 second here. All right, let's get going. This is the 16th day of May, this Thursday at 11:11, and I'm glad each one of you, are here and you're hearing my voice, whether it is now or later in the day or weeks hence. I hope that this day finds you well and whole and good in the raininess of this day. It has been cats and dogs here in the city this morning, so it is so. But I want us to look this morning at this holiday that is coming up. I don't often do this. Normally we try to stay focused on our day here, but this weekend on this Sunday is May 19th. It is Pentecost Sunday. Pentecost is considered it is one of the high holidays of Christianity, but it often gets kind of short shrift. It kind of gets a little. It's not, it's not a Christmas when, there's no Santa Claus. It's not Easter. There's no bunny. There's really, but I think there's something worth looking at, and I think particularly in these days. Easter is grand. The rebirth of it is the day of days, the rebirth of Christ into the world of in the resurrection, the overcoming of death and death's domain. Christmas is beautiful and in its peace and its joy and its simplicity of the divine child being born into the world and how we might nurture that in our lives. But Pentecost, what's going on here? So and one of the things is those are both of those, even though Easter is highly linked to the Jewish Passover, they work together in a way. They are uniquely Christian holidays. Pentecost was a solidly a Jewish holiday, even though it is there's not something, and so you have in this holiday this moment in time when people are celebrating this holiday of Pentecost, and on top of it arrives what happens, which is the arrival of the Holy Spirit with the disciples. Now, what does that mean? So, but I think in order to understand maybe what that means, part of it is to back up and look at the the holiday itself before the resurrection, but the holiday that the Jews that were there were keeping the holiday. Because what happens on Pentecost is that the Holy Spirit shows up. 3,000 people find their way to confessing Jesus as Lord, and that they begin, and that the church really has its birthday. It is born into the world as a movement. Now it will be under the auspices of Judaism for a lot of years. It will find its way, but as something, as a body that has with it its own agency, not just 12 guys that used to hang out with Jesus and don't hang out with him anymore, but has its own autonomy and its own mission and its own place to go forth into the world and baptize all people. And that is launched off of this day of Pentecost. Now, okay, what's the day of Pentecost? It is this holiday that was a part of the Jewish calendar, and it is a harvest festival. Now, we up here, in Massachusetts, New England, like having a harvest festival in springtime doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you're in Palestine, if you're in the Holy Land, there are 2 harvests a year. It's actually an incredibly fertile place for that reason. That if you can put a little water on it, there are incredibly long growing seasons, particularly in places where things will actually grow. And the brilliance of this first harvest, which happens with the beginning of this harvest festival. So there's one harvest festival, and then there's one later in the year in October. But this harvest festival that shows up begins, and it's not just kind of one moment. It begins with the Feast of First Fruits, which is a celebration of, yeah, you guessed it, first fruits. So the first fruits, though, that get grown in the Holy Land are barley. Barley is the first thing that comes up. Barley is way more hardy than wheat. And so barley is, they bake these loaves of barley bread. You can imagine how tasty they are. You can break a tooth on a loaf of barley bread. It's not all that great. But if you've just gone through the winter, you've been living on staples that you've stowed away, or what was in the granary in the grain house, and that all of that is probably running thin. And so this festival of first fruits is this incredible festival that people get excited about. But that's not Pentecost. Fooled you. That's not Pentecost. That is the beginning of the counting toward Pentecost. You see, once that happens, and Pentecost is also called the Festival of Weeks. Now, why is it called the Festival of Weeks? Because the Festival of Pentecost, the holiday of Pentecost, again, so remember, Pentecost is a holiday. You got the day off. You can't go to work. Schools are closed. You can't go to the bank. Like, everything is closed. People are gathering to celebrate. So the Pentecost holiday is 50 days, Pente, 50, after the the Feast of First Fruits. So whenever the first fruits come around, they start counting 50 days. Now, if you want to get to 50 days, how do you get there? Well, you start adding weeks, right? So you add 1 week and 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And then you get to 7 times 7 weeks. So you have a week of weeks. So a week of weeks is what? 49 days, and then the 50th day after the week of weeks, 7 weeks of 7 days, you get Pentecost. And here's the thing. Pentecost is this festival where we stop eating barley loaves. There's no barley loaves that's celebrated, because what has happened in those 50 days, from the time that the first of the barley matures, and you get to make those first loaves and recover from the spring, to the 50 days after that, the first wheat comes in. The first wheat of the year arrives. And instead of having these hockey puck kind of barley, nuggets that you have to gnaw on in order to kind of get through the day, the brilliance of fresh ground wheat and leavened and unleavened bread begins to be served. It is this celebration of, if you think about the brilliance of this, the wonder of it. I mean, we're in a world that, we have, 17 different, we have 35 different types of cereal. We have all of these choices. None of them really matter, but we have all of these different things. I like this kind of bread. I don't like that. I like Wonder Bread. I like I like Bolos, whatever. Portuguese sweet bread, which is made by angels, by the way. All of the different kinds of breads and things that we have available today. But in their world, that when the bread machine went off and the things and the scents began to come, these were moments of incredible beauty and incredible joy, because we're not sucking on whatever we'd put in the grain stores. We are no longer kind of even gnawing on old bread, which or the new barley, which is good. Like, it's good. It beats what we had. It goes from okay to good to best. That new wheat, that fresh baked bread, and that is a cause for celebration. That is the celebration that is Pentecost. So one of the things, I have half a mind to try and get the sanctuary to smell like fresh baked bread one Sunday when we get there, because that is the true scent and the true joy of Pentecost, is this festival of these 7 weeks, this festival of the best things that have come to us. Not just the good, not just the okay things that we can manage to survive on. Not just the good things that we're going to make it another year, because even if the wheat doesn't make it, we've got enough. Well, the barley will sustain us. Not just that we can be the cockroaches of the world and we can survive things, but that the very best things are going to show up. The most delicious, that fresh baked bread smell will overtake the city and the world, and that everybody will be in this festival of weeks in Pentecost. And it's that moment that the Holy Spirit decides to move. This space between the barley and the wheat. Full wheat isn't here yet. The full harvest hasn't come yet. And there will be another harvest later in the year. But that moment where things shift into joy is this moment that God shows up in the world with the disciples who have been waiting and waiting and waiting, and that the world becomes united in their mission of following Jesus. There's something really beautiful in this. That what Pentecost really brings us. And don't worry, this isn't my Pentecost sermon for Sunday, so there's part 2. But I want to set this up because I want to invite you into the Pentecost celebration. That whether you'll darken a door on Sunday or not, but that you can invite the self into this recognition of the joy of life. Marianne Williamson says, "What joy is what happens to us when we allow ourselves to recognize how good things really are." Now, I know some of you have broken bodies, or you're working about. Some of you have broken relationships. Some of you have broken hearts, and you've got loss. Some of you have broken lives, and you're trying to figure out how to make a living. There's all manner of brokenness in the world, and yet this rhythm of just eking it through from the storehouse, this first harvest of barley, which will get us through, but is not all that delicious, to the great and wondrous and beautiful movement of the Spirit that shows up in Pentecost when that first wheat gets ground by the mill and is baked into bread and is fed. Can you imagine what that must have tasted like after months of kind of living on rock soup and sustenance? That moment is when the Holy Spirit chooses to move into the world and create the birthday of the church, who draws thousands of people to Christ, who have come from many different walks of life and many different places, who don't even speak the same languages, but whom understand one another because of the fact of joy. Because the things that make us come alive, well, they make us come alive. They make the world come alive. They make the touch of fresh bread on the tongue enlivens us. The touch of God's Spirit upon our life, the touch of truth and good and beauty in our life, touches and enlivens us. And so the invitation to Pentecost is the invitation to the place to let the fire burn in the places that we come alive in our life. There are plenty of places. There is still way more harvest yet to come. There is still way more things to be healed. There's still way more things to be grown. That we're not there yet. But the invitation to Pentecost is the invitation to not losing our sweet spot of life and the sweetness of today and God's Spirit and movement in today, and the way that overcomes divisions, the way it overcomes the brokenness, the way it overcomes the difficulties of our life. I've talked about this before, but it bears repeating, and I think it's great for our age. Is that there's this book called Religious Affections. Now, I don't necessarily recommend you go read it. It's written in I think it's the 1740s by Jonathan Edwards, probably one of the greatest theologian of America. He really creates American Christianity, if we want to call it, if there is such a thing. You can talk about Bradford and the Pilgrims, but they're really in many ways English Christianity. The Edwards moves the ball forward in a way of people understanding what Christendom is for us in a way that is it changes everything. Now, and now in his day, there were all kinds of things people were getting excited about. There were all kinds of revivals going on. There was all kinds of, it was kind of, this area actually was considered kind of and New York was considered the burnt over district. There had been so many revivals that people were just worn out from revivals. There was all of these people getting excited about this, people getting excited about that, he was posed the question, how do you know if the experience that you're having is legitimately from God? Or how do you know, or maybe it's not. Maybe you're just in a crowd of people and you're getting all carried away with the crowd of people, and we're just going with the mood, and the mood seems to strike us. Maybe we're delusional. Like maybe we've talked ourselves into a particular way of thinking or a particular way of being, and we just think that, oh, this must be from God. This impulses I have must be coming from God. Maybe there's convincing preaching, and maybe somebody's really just charismatic, and you're just won over to them, and they're like, oh, they're great. How do you know that the experience that you're having is in fact the experience of God, rather than all of these different ways that we can be kind of drawn off the path? And friends, I don't think there's ever been a time in human creation when there were more ways for us to be kind of drawn away from what is legitimately true and good and beautiful. We have more distractions. We have more types of, we have more types of cereals. You can have Frankenberry, or you can have Boo Berry, or you can have all the other things, or you can have Cap'n Crunch. There's all kinds of different choices out here in the world, more than there ever has been. How do we know if our experience is authentic? Well, because it's a Pentecost experience. It's an experience of joy. It's an experience of the Spirit. that endures beyond just, oh, things are going great, or this guy said pretty things, or look at all these people that I'm like and they like me. It is outside of our, but is this enduring experience of joy, kind of the way that Marianne Williamson describes it. The joy is what happens to us when we allow ourselves to recognize how good things really are. And the movement of the Spirit, the movement of the Spirit in Pentecost, at this moment when the new wheat is ripe and it turns and it's being turned to bread, and the room and the city and our lives smell a little bit like heaven. It's those moments that make us come alive, that the Spirit moves into and draws us into, and that joy overcomes all divides, overcomes all differences, overcomes all the different ways in which we can encounter each other in separation and brokenness, or even encounter ourselves. Friends, my hope for you this day is that you will step into this Pentecost weekend and, well, maybe bake some bread. Maybe open yourself to the true and the good and the beautiful things in your life that bring joy, and allow yourself to recognize how good things are. Even if your body isn't right, even if your mind isn't right, even if your heart isn't right, even if the full harvest of how good things will be one day is not yet manifest, joy is just below that permission for us to see the movement of the Spirit in the holy wind, and to hear the roaring of it come into our lives, and the unity that happens with those strangers that are friends we just haven't met yet. All right, friends, that's my hope for you on this Pentecost weekend. Peace and grace. I hope you will find, if you'll come worship with us, obviously, 10 o'clock on Sunday. We're bringing some folks into new membership. Elizabeth Carey and Allison Rigo, so excited about that. We have a dove release. We're going to do that. We have our fellowship time after church. It's going to be a great Sunday. Come and be with us. If you can't be, find your way to worship someplace. It'll be great. Go and lift. And if you can't do that, or that doesn't work, go and find yourself a place where joy can be felt, where the things that come alive can feed you, and that the fresh baked bread of creation can lift you into and allow you to see how good things really are. Peace and grace, my friends, and we'll pick it up next week with another 11:11.